Ready?
While mental health gets more attention, you may not realize eating disorders like anorexia and bulimia are mental health illnesses.
We've been talking about how COVID's impact is on the mental health of people. So many people affected, and those with eating disorders are also impacted.
I think in the last 10 to 15 years, there has been a great increase in the number of young men suffering from eating disorders.
Eating disorders are a way that we numb our emotionality, just like drugs, just like alcohol, sex, social media. We numb through so many different things, and food is just the most socially acceptable and readily available drug on the market.
Hey.
Hi. So good to meet you.
It's so nice to meet you guys. I know virtually, but
Yeah.
Hey.
Hi. Hi. Is it okay this way or should I turn my phone?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi there. It worked.
It works. I'm so happy. Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Sarah.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you both?
Good. I'm not sure if it's completely fine if you don't want to, but your camera's off right now. I'm not sure if you want to turn it on, but it's completely fine if you don't want to.
Oh, it's fine. Wait.
Okay, cool. Hi.
Great. This is cool. I haven't, 12-hour differences. I've never talked to someone that far away. Hey.
Sorry, ladies. My phone died and I couldn't get it turned back on. My apologies.
No problem.
It's okay, no worries. Thank you for meeting with us today. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
Hi.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going? Is it better if I'm this way or this way?
This way. Yeah.
This way? Okay. Cool.
Okay, so we wanted you to just introduce yourself, where you're from, maybe share a bit of your story.
yeah, definitely, Sarah. So my name is Emily Formia. I'm currently 24 years old. I'm living in Boston, Massachusetts, but I actually grew up back in the Midwest. So I'm from Southern Illinois.
So my name is Marcy Warhaft. I'm originally from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I'm in Toronto now.
I am the direct client support worker at NEDIC, or the National Eating Disorder Information Center. I've been here since 2013, or 2012 maybe.
My name's Chloe, and I'm 27 years old. Currently, I'm in Niagara, so I was born and raised in Niagara, but I actually spent the past 5 years in Toronto post-graduation, where I've been working in communications.
Okay, so hey everyone, my name is Jan Pleje. I am from the Philippines. I am 17 years old, currently studying 11th grade, and currently recovering from eating disorder and body image issues.
So my name is Steph. I am 23, a single parent of two, a 6-year-old boy and an 18-month-old little girl. I am a culinary college graduate, but I am returning to school soon.
My name's Michelle, and my friends call me Michelle, so either one is fine. I'm an occupational therapist, so it's a little bit different than the way that a psychotherapist or a psychologist might approach mental health. So occupational therapists basically take a focus on the way that health and activity health interact.
In the 7th grade, I think I just started to kind of be more aware of my body, as probably most teenagers are. And then on top of that, I went to my doctor's visit for my yearly physical, and he did my height, did my weight, and he made kind of a comment that I was kind of higher on the BMI chart. So I started just kind of slowly cutting out certain foods, just kind of oh no, I don't need a dessert or here and there. And it was very innocent, I think, at first, and increasing my activity. And then in 7th grade, within the next 5 or 6 months, I dropped 50 pounds, and I ended up inpatient. So I ended up in the hospital. I was clinically diagnosed with anorexia in 7th grade. I stayed in inpatient for about a week, and then kind of following the next 10 years after that, I continued to struggle with food.
I was a little performer, a little dancer, and I was also an athlete, and I was very outspoken and not intimidated by anything or anyone. And then as I got older, I went through a really traumatic experience when I was 17. my older brother got sick and he passed away, and he was 21. And my father had been out of the picture since I was 10. And my older brother was the sun, the moon, and the stars to me. And so when he got sick, actually, what happened was I started to feel like I had nothing. My life felt very out of control because it just seemed so bizarre. And I felt like I had no power over what was going on. And so the only thing I could control was myself. And I found myself getting very obsessed with what I was eating. I often say that my brother's death gave birth to my eating disorder.
I wasn't diagnosed until I was 15 years old. And at the time, I attended McMaster for their outpatient program, family-based therapy. I was feeling really great about my recovery. I had met all the goals, and then university hit. So I was actually at Queen's University in Kingston. And unfortunately, I did relapse during my first year there.
Ever since I was a child, I am considered as quote unquote overweight in class. And I always get bullied because of how I look, because of how other people see me, because of my weight. And every time there are activities in school, people always make fun of me, make fun of my body. And those things make me feel uncomfortable and make me feel bad about myself. And that's why self-consciousness get into me. And because of that, last year I started losing weight. When I started dieting and when I started exercising, I became addicted to it, and I don't know when to stop anymore.
My story kind of begins in when I went into foster care at the age of 11. And that's where I started having body dysmorphia and eating disorder issues, as well as at one point anorexic and very, very, what's the word I'm looking for here? Uncomfortable with a scale number of 3 digits. So between the ages of 12 to about 15, I struggled with myself to keep myself under 120, 30 pounds. But at one point I did battle a drug addiction. So that did add into my eating disorder issues. With my son, I was 16 when I got pregnant with him, and I was about 85 to 90 pounds at the time of conception with him. And when I gave birth to him, I was about 116. And at that moment, I was like, whoa, I don't like this number. So let's try to get that back down. And that's kind of been a reoccurring back and forth issue since he was born.
I was a kid, so probably 8. I moved from a very culturally diverse area in Scarborough. My family moved where it was a largely South Asian population, and I'm mixed. So my dad is half Russian and half German, Polish, and my mom is Indian. So it was a primarily South Asian community there to York Region, which is primarily Caucasian. And I think that was a bit of a shock just in terms of a lot of the people didn't have the same, I guess, just body type as me. People would make comments and make fun and all of that. There was some bullying that happened as well, being bullied about my weight and stuff like that. And then obviously all of the messages from the media don't help about how, people are supposed to look a certain way. Media is overall dominated by depictions of physical attractiveness that are primarily Caucasian influenced.
And the Oscar goes to Brie Larson,
Joaquin Phoenix,
Jennifer Lawrence,
Leonardo DiCaprio.
The Hollywood Foreign Press Association came under fire after reports of serious ethical concerns, and after revealing out of nearly 90 of its members, none are Black.
I would get the magazines once a week that were the Disney Channel stars or whatever it was. I would see the magazines, I would see the TV shows and the commercials. And so I sort of more so compared myself to celebrities versus just other individuals in my real life and such.
With social media, you have the good and the bad.
Every girl is going for this look. but it's not a realistic look.
Everybody's airbrushed. Everybody's like, they do photo shoots after people have been dehydrated.
If you're doing a shirtless scene, what's that you have to dehydrate yourself?
Oh yeah, that's the worst part of it. Like, diet is difficult and you're hungry, but when you're dehydrating for 3 days, you get to the point on the last day where you can smell water, like nearby.
So why do you do that? To get super toast?
It gets it makes your skin really thin, so it sits on the muscles.
And first thing in the morning, and like, you don't see images of people being like, just had a big meal, like here's me in a crop top, like you don't see that, right? So that's a really big factor. So, people see that and they're like, oh, like I have to look like that. How do I look like that?
So when you see yourself kind of comparing yourself to someone's account or whatever it may be, it's just not the whole picture. And because mine's not the whole picture. And so it's keeping that in mind as well.
What is it that like society is plastering all over your feeds? What is it that society is trying to make you achieve?
You have the power to look at what you want to look at, right? You can fill your social media feed with the stuff that's going to feed your soul in a good way, or the stuff that's going to tear you down in a bad way.
And it can take a lot of time to kind of filter your socials.
Muting, unfollowing, following more therapists is a great tip. My feed has so many therapists, and I love that. Of course, keeping your close friend circle as well is great too. But there is a good community of eating disorder support out there. So I think you just have to be really mindful of who you're following and make sure that it's maybe people more within your bubble. Like, don't follow mostly celebrities. Like, their lives are so different from yours, and I find that it's there's like an infinite number of people you can compare yourself to when you like keep pushing those layers of your social circle like further and further out. So I think like the closer and the smaller you can keep your social media, it might be healthier for your mental health. And one trend that I hate so much is what I ate today.
So today I'm going to show you what I eat in a day.
Today I thought it could be fun to show you what I eat in a day.
They normalize this like very restrictive, rigid style of eating. And
I think some people have good intentions with it, but a lot of the time I find that it's just promoting diet culture, or the amounts of food really aren't sustainable, or they'll also focus on like caloric intake or like micros and macros.
Social media really has a great role in spreading awareness about eating disorder and normalizing these things on all genders, because before, when people say eating disorder, they are just focusing on women. But now, because of social media, we can spread awareness that eating disorder can also affect men. It can also affect different genders.
Society, as much as they haven't normalized it, they've made it worse.
We're living in a society that cheers on when people lose weight, even if it's for the wrong reasons. We glorify weight loss when we shouldn't. We confuse physical appearance with physical fitness, and that's not, the skinniest girl in the room isn't always the healthiest, and the guy with the biggest muscles isn't always the strongest. It's just not like that.
So this is an overgeneralization, but you tend to see sort of like women, when the preoccupations about body weight, shape, and size come up, they're often about like wanting to be slim, wanting to be thin, wanting to have a flat stomach, wanting to sort of like look like the sort of prevailing images of beauty or attractiveness. Men tend to more have a focus on like being like lean and being muscular and things like that. And that's not a surprise, because if you look at like canonical prevailing images of attractiveness, that's sort of like what is pushed upon men.
So my brother, and I mean, he wouldn't mind me sharing this with him, but my brother is super into weightlifting, like really into weightlifting, and he's very good at it, like very strong. He's my younger brother, but he's like massive, and he went through a time where he was counting his calories. He was still having sort of a restrictive eating disorder. Like, he wasn't ordering out at restaurants, he wasn't, going to a birthday party and enjoying cake, but it was more okay because it was in the name of fitness. You're a bro, right? You go to the gym, you like track your macros or whatever, and it's not an eating disorder. It's just like tracking your food.
The new 90210, there was a character who was playing an 18-year-old. The actor playing him started playing the role when he was 31. So you had a 31-year-old playing a teenager, and this guy was cut and built, and he had a man's body. But you had teenage boys looking at him, and they're thinking, why don't I look like him? Why don't I have a six-pack like him? So society and the media and all that was lying to them and making them feel bad.
As much as a woman's body is idealized, so is a man's, right? That muscular beef, work out, right? And muscle and be strong and tough and don't allow any emotion. And I mean, we're all human, right? And so it impacts men differently in that buff and lean. It manifests differently, but the fundamental of, again, the patriarchy and gender roles and stereotypes and expectations of, and again, who gets to own whose body, right? I'm not so much about normalizing eating disorders. It's more lack of awareness of the impact of the illness, of the seriousness of the illness, and the complexity of the development that goes into it.
I think a lot of the times with like eating disorders and with just mental illness in general, they think that if you change the actions first, everything will be solved.
Talk around the eating part and ask them more about their emotions and their feelings and, how they've been doing, if anything's changed in their life lately.
If someone listening knows someone who's struggling with food or is struggling with food themselves, I think it's just so important to always remember that it's just a symptom. The actions are just symptoms of the illness, of what's actually going on.
I think people still think that eating disorders are about vanity. It's so beyond that, and it's so misunderstood.
Sure, I might have looked healthy, but I was going through like a lot of mental anguish, and comments like that where people assume that because of the way I look that I'm more recovered than I actually am, I think is pretty harmful.
To be an ally, you just have to be observant.
You could sit at a restaurant and look around you and see how many people are struggling with their meal in front of them, but they're forcing themselves to eat it. You also notice how many times people will go to the bathroom and excuse themselves from said table. Why is that? They're uncomfortable to be there. They don't want to be at that table. They're not in a safe place. If you can provide that safe space for someone struggling with the idea of eating and having a not so good relationship with food, establishing that safe space just shows them that you see them, you hear them, and you understand them, but it also shows them that you're not judging them.
This brings up a good example, actually. I remember I had a really good colleague at work, and she had opened up to me about something really personal, and I had sort of reciprocated, just feeling like very comfortable with her, and told her about my struggle with an eating disorder. And she's like, hey, I don't want to trigger you. Can we think of a word that I can use, like pineapple, and just bring it up casually in a conversation? So it's not specifically saying how's your eating or have you been restricting? It's more like, oh, this sounds so silly. How are the pineapples today? And I could be like, oh my God, the worst. And that was a really, really cool thing to do. It showed that she was willing to talk to me about it, and put herself out there, because it's a two-way thing. It can be really uncomfortable for someone if you're divulging your deepest, darkest personal health history to someone. So I think you have to make sure it's the right person and that you're both comfortable sharing.
Validating that it is an illness, that there's a lot of silence and secrecy with an eating disorder. It's a very maladaptive illness, which means it wants to protect itself. It doesn't want anybody in who wants to help. So it can be very challenging to support somebody.
Do some research. Because even if the person isn't ready to get help yet, if they do become ready, if you have the information necessary right away, they can get started. So find some support and offer it, but don't push it. So it's just sort of letting them know you're not judging them, you care about them, and you're there for them.
your body is not the problem. You don't have to be affected about what other people say about you, and you don't have to depend how you live your life to what other people think about you.
You have to be comfortable with what you feel. If you are comfortable in wearing that pair of shorts or that shirt because you feel comfortable, go for it. Screw what anybody else has to say, because at the end of the day, you are living for yourself. You're not living for other people. And that is the one thing that I know females do struggle with. I was said female. I had to learn how to live in my skin after a kid for the last 6 years, and I finally adapted to it. And I'm like, whatever, such is life. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, sure, there are still those flare-ups of like, oh my God, like this looks horrible. So what? Who's really gonna, you know what I mean? Who's really gonna stop me from being me? Nobody but yourself.
We put so much emphasis on losing weight and not enough on gaining health. And there's a big difference between the two. You know, sometimes gaining health has nothing to do with losing weight. That's the shame, is that we put how we look over how we feel. The best body is the one that lets you do everything that you want to do, right? It's the one that you feel the best in when you're living in a way that's letting you do the things you want to do and eat the way you want to eat. That's your best body. It's not a number or a size.
Your body needs to eat, it needs food. So just remembering that and standing your ground when it comes to certain boundaries of things that just, you know, need to happen for you to like feel your best. I just had to sort of redefine what was healthy to me and what was normal to me. Even though other people didn't eat breakfast, I ate breakfast. I knew that I needed to eat breakfast, and it was good for me to eat breakfast. It made me feel better. I think it's just kind of standing your ground when it comes to like certain things. And this isn't even around food. Maybe it's like that you really prioritize like journaling in the morning.
For the boys who are struggling from eating disorder, or for any genders who are struggling from eating disorder, know that your eating disorder is valid, even you are undiagnosed, because it is a privilege to have professional help or to seek professional help. But when you are undiagnosed, it doesn't mean that you are invalid or your eating disorder is not real. So you should feel like your eating disorder is valid and that you deserve recovery too.
Be comfortable in your body, whatever your body type is, right? Celebrate it. Celebrate your natural size. Nourish your body. Move your body, right? Listen to your body, right? Self-care, self-soothing, all that.
Be gentle and compassionate towards yourself, because you only have one life. And do you want to look back on your deathbed and be like, oh, like, I wish I had been skinnier, or like, I wish I hadn't eaten that birthday cake. You're going to look back and be like, oh, like, I wish I'd been more fulfilled. I wish I'd said that thing to that person. I wish I'd gone to that place and did that thing. Like, just have perspective and gentleness and compassion towards yourself.
I think I read a quote recently that was like, we spend 95% of our energy trying to like lose 5% more body weight or something like that. And it was just such an eye opener of like, why? Like, why? Okay, like, so you're going to be 5 pounds heavier, maybe. Like, okay, but here's all that you can do with those extra 5 pounds. And here's all the freedom and all the relaxation that comes with it. Like, just why?